Welcome to the Escape Collective Tour Daily, the most prescient podcast.
Is that the right word? I just said that. I'm not sure if is that what it means?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Clairvoyant?
Clairvoyant would also work.
Oh.
Our crystal balls are crystal clear.
We saw Lafay yesterday. We foresaw Lafay today.
Foresaw Lafay's victory. Okay, let's pick this up.
Victor Lafay.
Yes.
Should we just start again?
No.
Nah.
Absolutely not.
Cool.
As Josh pointed out, the likely headline of L'Equipe tomorrow, Victor Lafay, which literally means Victor, he done did it. Is that a good French translation?
Pretty much, yeah.
He done did it?
He did the thing.
He did the thing. We're sitting here. We are in a lovely, lovely square in San Sebastian, and, well, we just watched a phenomenal bike race. Stage 2 of the Tour de France has just recently wrapped up, and pretty exciting finish. I thought it might be a bit of a dud from a GC perspective, and I guess you could argue that it was, but it was certainly a good bike race. Johnny, kind of talk me through it?
Yeah, UAE...
Deer in the headlights over here.
UAE basically once again took the race to Jumbo-Visma in search of bonus seconds. Pogacar had hinted at this before the start of the race, that he wanted to take bonus seconds where he could get them. That's why he was disappointed they took the bonus points off the Côte de Piquet on stage 1. UAE ramped it up towards the Yaskabel, and over the top. Adam Yates hit out first, and then Pogacar and Vingegaard, they went off in search of the points. Pogacar took 8 seconds to Vingegaard's 5. They went off on their own down the descent. The group of sort of a GC group by that point came back together. It looked like it was Wout van Aert's race for the taking. A couple of riders hit out, Skelmoser. But then Victor Lafay, the man from yesterday, shot off the front, couldn't be caught. Wout van Aert chucked his hand down in frustration, and then a few yards after the finish line, grabbed his bottle and threw that on the floor, which then bounced back towards the fans, and then also threw his bike when he got to the bus. So it's the perfect 3. They come in threes, the frustrations.
I would argue that Wout van Aert had reason to be angry, and this has been discussed a fair amount in the sort of hour or two since the race is wrapped up. Even some of his own teammates were saying somewhat similar things. And what I mean is that if Jonas Vingegaard had taken a single pull in that final kilometer, it's very likely that Victor Lafay would have come back, and it would have been a different Victor. But that didn't happen. And I think that Wout van Aert has sort of a right to be a little bit annoyed by that. Brief break to order food.
Aubergine cannelloni.
What are your takes on this?
I think that Victor Lafay, I think it's quite reasonable for everyone to have thought that Victor Lafay would have been brought back. He had all the makings of somebody that was going to get caught just before the line. So I don't think that it's entirely unreasonable of Vingegaard to not take a pull, because
it also would have been sort of against team orders, right? That would have had to be, I think the one reason why, like, Wout van Aert can be maybe sort of annoyed at the way that things played out, but can't really be annoyed at Vingegaard because they wouldn't have talked about that scenario. It would have taken a split-second decision, and I'm not sure you can actually rely on him to make that decision in that way.
But I also think Belgian media is just going to be angry if anybody doesn't do anything for Wout van Aert.
That's true.
So I don't know. I don't feel that one.
We're just seeing this is the struggle that Jumbo-Visma will have that was highlighted in the Netflix documentaries, that you've got these 2 huge riders who both want to win as much as they can and in different ways, whereas with UAE Team Emirates, even though Adam Yates is in yellow and won a stage, it's not detrimental to Pogacar's goals as well, because he can just take over if Adam Yates ends up out of the yellow jersey, as we expect he will. So it's more complementary than trying to win Wout van Aert stages and not make Vingegaard chase Victor Lafay on stage 2.
We confirmed today as well that Yates really is just it's a fake co-leadership. We knew this from yesterday. We knew this before. We knew it from the very first time that they ever said it. But that was pretty much confirmed today when he was stuck on the front to do the pulling and not the other way around, even though he is in the yellow jersey at this point in time.
Even last night he was saying that Tadej is the boss. So I think it's straight from the horse's mouth. We all know it.
Well, when Vingegaard and Pogačar jump off the front towards the top of that climb, there's your answer really. There's no point pretending otherwise. Adam Yates has had we'll have a few more days in the sun because he's still got 6 seconds, I think, on Pogačar. So he'll keep the yellow jersey for a while. He won a stage. He's got his big fluffy dog here.
He's got an extremely fluffy dog here. The cutest Yates in a yellow jersey this morning at the stage start in a kind of depressing parking lot next to a stadium. And then there was the dog Zoe, a Samoyed, in a yellow jersey. And I interviewed Adam Yates' dog this morning, so it's been a great day for me.
You also did try and ask Adam Yates' girlfriend how far away Andorra was, just to try and get some sort of context to how far she travelled, just making small talk.
My geography knowledge in Spain is slim to none. So I didn't think it was an unreasonable question, and I don't think she answered in an unreasonable way either.
No,
I don't think anyone's the villain here, but I said, oh, Andorra, how far away is that? And she said, I don't know, which is confusing to me because she has made the journey, probably today. And then follow-up was just check on Google Maps, which, fair enough. But it was quite a pleasant chat otherwise.
That was let me Google it for you in real life.
Having just checked it on Google Maps, in case we're now curious, it's 300k away.
That's quite a long way to go with a Samoyed in the back.
It is.
Especially when that Samoyed is about to get stuffed into a yellow jersey in the UAE Team Emirates bus.
I've also just remembered now for the second night in a row, as Josh comes in, that I haven't introduced to anybody. So this is going to become a thing, I think.
That's fine, we can do that.
The way that we kind of do this is we sit down, finally, we slow down for the first time all day, and we just hit record and we start talking, basically. We've thought through what we want to talk about already, and we just get going. So, I do need to stop for a moment. I'm Kaylee Fretz. Johnny Long.
Hola. For the final time, hola.
Ian Trelor.
Hello.
And
good to be here.
And Joshua Robinson.
Hello. Again.
Just another found in press room. Sorry, that was disruptive.
What was found in the press room?
That's fine. Should we explain for the podcast? I think we'll do this as an article at some point towards the end of the tour. There's a big WhatsApp group for all of the media at the Tour de France, and it has useful things such as sort of stage results, communiques from officials,
safety stuff,
changes to the route, maybe if there's free lunch on offer or if you have to pay for lunch.
Today, no lunch.
Today, no lunch, but that's fine. But the most interesting thing that we get sent down the chat is things that have been left behind in the press room. Usually these are just sort of chargers and computer equipment, but sometimes it's things like whole suitcases or items of clothing. And I think by the third week it's what keeps you going, is just seeing how far other people's sort of minds have deteriorated.
I think I almost forgot my charger in the press room today. So I'm reluctant to cast too much scorn on this particular lost charger. But if I'm wearing my investigative hat, it is not a European. We can see that there's a European adapter. I think what ASO could have done, if they were really providing a service, would be to take the charger out of the adapter so that we could see what plug it belongs to. So it could be an Australian, it could be a European.
It looks UK, I think.
Could be UK.
Looks British to me.
Maybe one of my mates. What I'd like to see, though, is the ASO presenting it like when there's a massive police drugs bust, where the items on the table and they're all just standing behind it, arms crossed.
We got another one.
Yeah.
I have a lot of time for the ASO people.
They're lovely.
Today I was bothering one of them. Started out by just trying to butter him up by telling him that his moustache looks good this year.
Yeah.
And then tried to, succeeded in finding out why the green jersey is a different colour this year.
Oh.
It's because Skoda has changed their logo slightly to a different colour. So tomorrow, if Pierre from ASO does his job as he has promised, he will tell me the exact Pantone shade.
head over to escapecollective.com and find out what Pantone shade it is.
I don't like the Pantone shade, I will say that. It's a worse green jersey.
No, I have had multiple people text me, watching from home, telling me that they hate it.
I hate it.
Yeah.
I like it, but not in the context of the green jersey of the Tour de France.
It's actually a nice color. Like, it's a nice color on a car, for example. There's a car that is wrapped in the same color. It's like the car of this Sprinters jersey, the points jersey. Car looks great. It's kind of British Racing Green-esque.
It's also confusing because every year teams are forced to change their kits so that they don't clash with the yellow jersey or the green jersey or whatever. But in this particular instance, Bora, who got to stay green because their green jersey was different to the green jersey, is actually very close to the green jersey this year. So I think ASO or the UCI has missed a trick there. And I'd really like Bora to be forced to change all of their clothes mid-race in disgrace.
You can't stop the Bora boys' fun. That's the number one rule.
They're a very fun team, aren't they?
I think so.
Profoundly fun. Always having fun.
Did we learn anything else about Victor Lafay in the last 24 hours? I mean, we talked extensively about him yesterday because, frankly, he was a surprising name at the front there. I was standing next to Daniel Freeb today, who was doing an interview for ITV, and I was kind of just overhearing it, to be honest. And he was talking to Tej Benoot, and Benoot said, no, this is a guy that we've had on our radar for quite some time. He's been particularly strong over these small, punchy climbs. The peloton has known this. But there is no question that he's leveled up this Tour de France.
I was skulking on a Simon Geschke, who was saying that on his day Victor Lafay is one of those riders that could do almost anything and win almost anything. So there was no apparent surprise in the Cofidis team bus about how today turned out, and he obviously showed yesterday that he's got some pretty strong legs. So well done, Victor Lafay. Also for Cofidis, their first stage win at the Tour in 15 years, I believe. If my eavesdropping is to be believed, they have had a bottle of champagne waiting in the team bus for that entire 15 years to be popped in the event of a stage win. I don't know whether that was a figure of speech or whether it was a genuine...
Does champagne go off at some point?
Well, it might be bad champagne, but Simon Geschke was pretty keen to get onto the bus to give it a crack.
I mean, properly kept, I think that champagne can keep. There is such a thing, of course, as vintage champagne. But
is a bus that place?
A wine cellar and a hot bus are pretty different. The other thing is, I sat in Victor Lafay's French press conference, and he was asked about his emotions and what he felt in the final kilometer. And he said, the first 500 meters I did on enthusiasm. The second 500 meters I did on toxins, by which he meant lactate. Just pure pain.
Oh, that sounds pretty brutal. But I mean, it's. I love it when at the Tour de France we get. Again, I don't want to say it's a new name, but it kind of is in the sort of the scheme of internationally known cyclists. Just because Tej Benoot was sort of aware of this guy, I think when you're in the peloton, you probably see more riders who are like, "Wow, you're still here." You know, this is a name that I have read many times and just passed over for years and years and years. And to have somebody sort of pop out of nowhere like that at the Tour de France is fantastic.
I mean, how much of that was down to him being on Cofidis, a team that we have been trained for 15 years to expect nothing from,
and not really ever talked to? Yeah,
that's very unkind to Guillaume Martin. We have been trained to expect something from Guillaume Martin.
A very specific thing.
10th to 12th.
Not a whole lot of reason to speak with Guillaume most of the time, to be perfectly honest.
Do you want another little news update from something we discussed yesterday?
Yes.
So yesterday we were discussing the radio graphics, one of the radio messages that have been shown on TV this year, updating us on the team cars telling riders to make sure they're eating and drinking and moving up and stuff like that. We haven't seen much of it yet. I mean, people watching back home will probably be able to let us know how insightful and how much it's added to the broadcast, but did find out today that the broadcasters are paying a bit more money to have that as part of the sort of package deal. So maybe that's why ASO are passing it on, because they don't want to just, I don't know, maybe they're avoiding some sort of fallout from charging and making profit off that. That doesn't seem very ASO.
No, they love profit.
Yeah, to be that to share in that manner.
They are sharing. It is genuine sharing. I mean, they could have kept $5,000 times 22 teams, which is not nothing. 17 teams, right? That's
no,
what they're paying
22.
out? No, because they're not paying everybody.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yes.
17 are involved. So whatever that is, I'm not going to.
So they're pocketing some money.
And Cofidis is not one of the teams.
Cofidis is not one of them,
involved.
which they're probably regretting now.
Yeah.
We missed out on hearing them say, "Good job, Victor. Good job."
Great job, man. And him going, "Thanks to the team. This is a really great victory for us."
We can move some more things. Our dinner has just arrived.
Aubergine cannelloni. For those
already at that point in the tour where we need vegetables and pasta and something that's not just meat, although we have that too.
Yep. Well, this seems like a good place to take a brief pause, and we're going to eat for a couple minutes and come right back.
Hello, apologies for the interruption. I'll be brief. If you're enjoying this podcast, which hopefully you are, you've got the members of the Escape Collective to thank. All of our podcasts and articles and everything else is funded by people like you, our readers and listeners. If you already signed up, then a massive, massive thank you. You make all of this possible, and it's great to be able to have this thing funded by our audience. It lets Ian Treloar wax lyrical about Thibaut Pinot's growing collection of livestock, or means that Dave Rome can bring you the latest news about tools that, to be honest, half of them I don't even really understand what they do, but that's fine. Even if you're enjoying the Spin Cycle newsletter, that's the sort of thing that's only possible because of our membership model. If you haven't signed up yet, or maybe you're new around here, you should definitely head over to escapecollective.com/join, because that way we can continue making these podcasts, and also you then get access to all of the articles on our website as well as our Discord, where we've got a great community that talks about everything bikes as well as everything else, really. It's one of the last corners of the internet that doesn't have people just shouting at each other all the time. It's a sort of little safe haven, so that's worth the membership fee alone, really. Our monthly memberships start at $11.99, which if you're in the UK like me, that works out as a bit under a tenner, and to be honest, everything costs just under a tenner these days, so there are worse purchasing choices that you could make. You can also save 30% by signing up annually. It's very simple. You sign up and we bring you the best bike media on the planet. That's it, and thanks again if you've already signed up.
So beyond the fact that Victor Lafay is an exceptionally good bike rider, we've learned some other things over the first 2 days. The biggest of which is that, and this isn't going to surprise anybody out there, but really confirmed that this is kind of a two-horse race at the moment for the overall. I mean, every single time Pogačar has hit out, there's been one rider with him, right? And again, not something that we're surprised by, but certainly going to, I mean, frankly, like we assuming nothing bad happens, we kind of know the story the next couple of weeks. It's which one of those two can drop the other.
It's interesting, though, that the difference, because this year you have Vingegaard on his own, there's no Roglic, but you have Pogačar with Adam Yates, who, even if he's not on their level, it's a card to play that Jumbo-Visma can't really play. So, I mean, it's a bit early to be talking about this, but I guess because these have ended up being 2 GC days and now we're going to head into some sprint days, to reflect on that's how it's shaping up. And even if Pogačar hasn't found he's been able to drop Vingegaard yet, he's been able to take seconds out, and by the end you never know how many it's going to be.
I mean, yeah, just to sort of recap here, Pogačar is 6 seconds back on Yates right now, and Vingegaard is 17 seconds. So there's an 11-second gap already, which 11 seconds is not nothing. It's not a lot, but it's not nothing. And I would assume that Pogačar will continue to do that. He'll take a couple seconds here or there throughout the first couple of weeks. Then the question is, will there be a moment like last year where Jonas Vingegaard and Jumbo have sort of selected a spot where he's going to go, and that's the moment? Because there's two sort of very different approaches right now, which is one, Pogačar, which we saw today and yesterday. He's going to go for it basically at every single available opportunity. And the other, Vingegaard's going to ride defensively. He has ridden defensively for the first 2 days. He's probably going to continue to ride defensively for most of this race, but there will come a point at which he can't. And I would imagine they already have a pretty good idea what that point is.
I think that the talk of riding defensively and the fact that we're speaking about it being a two-horse race, 2 stages into the tour, sounds like it could be a boring and predictable race, but I don't actually think that will be the case,
I
because
think quite the opposite.
Pogacar rides in such a dynamic way, and over the top of the Jacobel, they were like hammering it. They were full on sprinting over the top of that climb, and that's pretty exciting for a Cat 2 climb on day 2 of a Grand Tour.
They took 1 minute and 50 seconds off the Strava KOM.
Really? You heard it before?
I didn't look. Yeah, I just saw that someone posted that up. And the thing is, it was probably already a pro because, the climb in other directions has been used in San Sebastian for a long time. But like, this is a region full of pros, and I'm sure it's been used in that direction by races before. So yeah, 1 minute and 50 seconds on a climb that's not that long.
But UAE did just absolutely gas it. Like, they were looking behind, checking like whether they should wait for Trentin after he crashed, and there was another one with Vergaard Steg Langen where they were telling him to like calm down a bit because it's like you're taking like way too many risks for like day 2.
Nico Bjerg was just like hammering, absolutely hammering.
They did like 80 kilometers each on the front, I think, in total today, which is just insane for day 2.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is also down to the parkour of this race. Because we're starting in the Basque Country and because we're so close to the mountains and straight into the hilly stuff, it's not the sort of easing into the first week of a Grand Tour. We've got like maybe a time trial and maybe a couple of flat stages and maybe something hilly, but that's really a breakaway day.
Yeah.
And even today, when it was a breakaway day, UAE wasn't willing to let that breakaway stay away. Like they were pulling it back when that probably wasn't something that they needed to do. And pretty
Jumbo did some more too.
Pretty disappointing for someone like me who had Nielsen Powless as their pick for the stage win. Would have been nice if they'd just chilled out a little bit.
Yeah, I did. I asked Charlie Wigilius, one of the directors over at EF, about that. He said he wasn't particularly surprised that UAE was keeping it close. He also wasn't surprised when he saw early on in the stage Jumbo closing a bunch of gaps, and that indicated to him that they were going to go for the stage win with Wout. And so at that point, I think internally at EF, they had basically decided, well, okay, we're now just on mountain points. It's very unlikely that he gets to the finish, which turned out to be the case. Still, I was slightly surprised. I like, this happens less and less now, but back in the day, giving the yellow jersey to a team to basically do all the work for the first week was something that happened all the time. And we've got 2 pretty flat stages coming up before we get back into the Pyrenees. You would have thought that UAE would be like, yeah, go for it. EF, you guys can ride on the front for 2 days. And instead they didn't. They decided to try to hang on to it.
I wonder how much of that mentality is kind of set by Pogacar, who is this kind of no-gifts rider where he is always racing to win. He always wants to ride at his best and animate the race, and it's very entertaining, and I wonder how much of that culture is trickling down. And actually we were talking before about how UAE are one of the more open and inclusive team buses that are doing things for the fans. They're receiving items for him to go and sign and things like that. Like it is not a Ineos style bus where
even Jumbo, really.
Yeah, right.
But and like when you see like a UAE, like a sponsor like that, you kind of assume that that's how the guys are going to be. But a lot of these are like ex-Lampre guys, and it's all quite an Italian
Very
feel.
Italian.
Like there's people that today when I was waiting there to talk to a few of the sports directors, there's a guy who like got his way to the front and showed Machin a picture of when they were both younger, like in some like training camp or something like that, and he saw it, recognised the guy, then was like pointing out to another UAE team member like all the different guys in the picture from way back, and it's nice. It kind of works, and I don't know where that direction has come from, but it's a clever thing to do for that team where they could be viewed as like this kind of weird, especially with all the other things going on with sport and the Middle East at the minute. It's a good way to sort of turn that around and be like, look, maybe this is who's paying our wages, but we're not what you think
human.
we are.
I think it's kind of surprising because they weren't involved in the Netflix series, and from that you'd probably get the perception that they're a bit of a closed shop and they're not really engaging with the outside world. They're there to ride the race, win the race. But there is a more human side to them than that would suggest.
Charm offensive.
Well, I think Pogacar is charming. I mean,
he is.
Yeah.
Rafael Majka is also not somebody that I would have thought of as charming, but he's like dancing on the team bus and has a bit of character, and it's a group of people that seem to like each other.
UAE today, for the first time I spotted, they've got an ice bath inside a team van, which I was frantically videoing and sending photos to the Escape WhatsApp group, just being like, can anyone who knows better than me tell me what's going on, because this is weird. But when Pogacar, basically the riders would come, get in this ice bath and quickly get out, and Pogacar got in, he stripped off in front of the bus, didn't seem to care that much, like, about privacy or whatever, jumped in, got out with a towel round, and everyone obviously cheers, ran back into the bus, and he was like waving to all the crowd, and it was just especially next to the EF bus, where currently all of the Colombians are just there chanting Rigo's name. UAE actually kind of held their own in that respect, but maybe the Netflix thing just comes down to UAE not needing to show deliverables to marketing people at their sponsors, and they can just focus on winning, and instead they just sign fans memorabilia. So now everyone has a little piece of UAE hanging up in their house, and job done.
Let's move on from sort of the GC stuff. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more to talk about on that front. I should say that I don't want to make it sound like I'm, two-horse race isn't going to be exciting. Like Ian said, I think it's going to be really exciting. And the fact that we've got these two riders riding in very different ways is going to make for a pretty fantastic Tour de France. But there's lots of other stuff happening throughout the race. We were talking about Nielsen Palace and the polka dots. I don't know how long he can hang on to that, but I think at this point he's got a decent little buffer, and I think they're going to hang on to it as long as they can. Once they get to the high mountains, the points kind of swap around there. The other thing that's happening over the next 2 days is some sprint stages, and the first opportunities for Mark Cavendish to pick up number 35. He wasn't looking super happy today, but at the same time, he probably just wants to save his legs for tomorrow.
Yeah, he was saying that stage 4 is more for him. Tomorrow goes along the coast, up to Bayonne, and he described it as it's going to be the hardest stage in the Tour, which maybe some very brave journalists will remind him of after the Col de la Loze stage. Or maybe he's just trying out for after his career for a job at GCN, where superlatives pay the bills, and every day at the Tour is the most exciting day at the Tour that's ever happened.
Could be. I do think it'll be a hard day tomorrow. It will all depend on the wind, but the wind tends to blow off the sea, so I think we can be guaranteed some level of windiness, probably the occasional echelon. The question is whether things come back together, and it's not perfectly flat either. That's the other thing. It's rolling. It'll be hard. It'll be windy. You add a little bit of a climb in when you've got crosswinds, and that's a pretty good way to blow up a bike race. So, I would say that tomorrow is kind of it should still be a sprint stage. I think the majority of the sprinters will be okay. Stage 4 is a straight-up sprint stage. We've got 2 days ahead of us where, Cavendish, Philipsen, Jakobsen, Groenewegen, and the Caleb Ewan. The sprint field here is pretty stacked.
Should be good. I can't remember the last time I saw all of these guys sprinting against each other.
It's been a while. They've been kind of bouncing around, doing the Giro, things like that, but we've got them all.
We've been spoiled with all this GC action at the Giro, Tour last year, Tour this year. It's time for a bunch sprint.
Well, and there's actually a fair number of bunch sprints this year. There's 7, I think, guaranteed bunch sprints and 8 possible. Guaranteed, of course, assuming that the peloton does its thing and doesn't start chasing too late or something like that, but they should be bunch sprints. That's a pretty good number for the sprinters, but they are all spread out. They're not lumped into the first week or the second week or the third week. They are all spread out. And so if you are a sprinter, you're going to have to get over the mountains pretty well and get recovered pretty well, or else you're not going to be winning any of these sprints. And I think that'll be the hardest thing for Cavendish, is that the deeper we get into this race, the more tired he's going to be. And I think probably, to be honest, the less likely he is to win a stage. So this could be the best opportunity for him in the next 2 days. We have a special guest. We're about to wrap up our portion of the episode, but Chris Marshall-Bell, you just dropped in. How are you?
I am very good, Kaylee. I'm in San Sebastian, which is just the best place in Spain. It's the best place in the world.
You speak Spanish, which helps. Those who read the site regularly will recognize, what's the most recent story from you? The Jonas Vingegaard story?
No. Mulu Haile Mikel, who is a wonderful young man. He is a guy from Tigray in Ethiopia, and he, like many Tigrayan cyclists, has been caught up by the awful civil war that took place from 2020 to 2022, and Mulu's story is nothing short but of inspirational, to be honest.
How could I forget? Go check that out on escapecollective.com. Chris has been doing some great stuff for us. I do believe that it is time for us to wrap up here in Spain. I'm going to throw over to José Been, who today is giving us some geological background around the Basque coast, including 2-meter big giant clams. Did you hear that? Johnny is shocked. 2-meter wide clams. We're going to hear about it in a second. All right, here's José.
This is our final stage in the Basque Country as we make our way to France later on stage 3. Today I won't tell you about the recent history of the Basque Country dating back to the Stone Age. No, we go way back, courtesy of the GeoTDF project. At 107 kilometers from the finish line, we find Zumaia. It's on the coast and it just cannot be missed. It will be shown on your television coverage, I guarantee it. This part of the northern coast of Spain is a designated geopark. They are areas of outstanding beauty, but more importantly, a very interesting geological past. Professors and students of geology travel from around the world to see the phenomena we see right here. Where the grassy land of Zumaia suddenly drops down to the coast, it reveals a cliff face that reminds us that geological beds are very much like a layer cake. If you look closely, you'll see that the cliffs are made up of different types of rock. Some are hard and resist erosion, while others are softer and more weathered. These rocks were formed over 66 million years ago at the bottom of a calm sea. It was at a time when dinosaurs were still around. This is also one of the places in the world where you can clearly see the exact moment when dinosaurs went extinct. It's called the KT boundary. Look it up. It's fascinating. Back to our layer cake at Zumaia, because in these layers you find fossils of sea creatures like sea urchins, which are quite similar to the living ones you might find on the nearby rocky beaches. But a trained eye might also notice spiral-shaped burrows in the rocks which record the movements of long-gone creatures. They tunnel through the seafloor looking for food. This horizontal seabed was later tilted and turned vertical when Spain collided with Europe. But more about that on stage 6 as we look at the Wilson cycle in the Pyrenees. One of the most interesting creatures of which we find fossils here are called inoceramids. They were huge clams, think up to 2 meters, that tightly held onto the rocks. They could grow hundreds of years, but only when there was no sedimentation. In other words, the seas had to be calm, otherwise they would be buried under the sand and die. When you are a huge clam, you're just not that mobile. This information on the rate of sedimentation is important because the sedimentation rate is a geological timekeeper. The layers serve as a time machine into the Cretaceous era, the one that ended 66 million years ago, and to interpret the layers correctly, we need to know how fast the time machine was actually ticking. And that's where the clams come into play. They tell geologists where the sedimentation rate took place, whether it was at the pace of a rusty city bike or a fast carbon race bike. Okay, fast forward back to 2023 as we make our way to Bayonne in France. This city has hosted the Tour 32 times, but this year is the first time back since 2003, when Tyler Hamilton won the stage from Pau to Bayonne. Remarkably, many riders who later went on to win the Tour de France won right here. Iconic names as Lucienne Petit-Breton, Octave Lapise, Firmin Lambeau, Ottavia Bottecchia, Nicolas Frantz, and the only one after the Second World War, Jacques Anquetil, won in Bayonne. It is also the birthplace of José Lafay, who was born here in 1911, and he was the winner of the 1937 Tour de France. Well, judging from today's stage profile, I very much doubt we will see the eventual Tour de France winner take the stage here. But let's be honest, crazier things have happened.
And finally, let's get over to Abby Mickey with an update from the Giro. We've got a bunch of excellent diarists bringing you the inside story from the Giro.
Hey, so I'm here on the bus. You can hear the music. Everyone's getting ready for stage 3. We have what is probably the only sprint stage of the Giro today. There's a climb 45k in and lots of sort of small technical roads. They've also decided to take the GC time from 1k to go because there's a pretty tight entry into an arena in the last k. So just to keep it safe, they've decided to take the time from 1k to go. But for us, we don't really have a sprinter here, so we've decided that today is mostly just about staying safe, getting in the break if we can. So for me, that means if I get in a break, obviously it could be a hard day, but it also could be quite an easy day. So what I am deciding to take in my pockets is comes into that decision. I'm standing in front of the food cupboard here. We've got a whole cupboard full of Enabit products from protein bars to high carb bars to gels, electrolytes, anything you want. So for me today, I like to have a couple of rice cakes and then a couple of gels. Like I'm looking for about 60 grams of carbs an hour today, maybe 90 or a bit more if I end up in the break. So for me, I'll take a couple of the high carb gels and I'll have one of them an hour. So I'll probably take three high carb gels and also 3 rice cakes and then maybe a 40 gram bottle of carbs an hour. So it's a fair bit. And then of course I'll also take an extra couple of gels and maybe a caffeine gel as well, just in case I end up in the break to have those options and make sure I don't run empty. Like it's a 9-day tour and how I fuel in these early stages will have an effect on how I feel later in the tour. So I definitely don't want to run empty. And it's the same for everyone. We just want to make sure you take care of yourself in these early days. It's also hot, so staying cool is a big part of it. And
The audio that you heard is from Loretta Hansen of the Lidl Trek team, giving us some good insight into the pre-race goings-on in the Lidl Trek bus. And now Hannah Barnes and I will dissect the race. Thanks so much for listening to the Wheel Talk podcast. Hannah Barnes, safe to say that we got this stage right this time.
We did.
Lorena Wiebes is really hard to beat in a sprint.
No, I mean, when she's got a clear road in front of her, she just sees the finish line and she goes for it. It's pretty impressive. I just read that she's had 3 race days where she hasn't won a race. Just 3 between wins. It's quite a lot for her. But no, it's pretty impressive. She's really, like, her kick is just, you just stand still when you're racing against her. And just seeing her, like, navigate through the peloton as well. Where to make those small accelerations just to get on the right wheels and mix some spaces up.
It looked like her final lead out today was Barbara Garishi, who's new to the SD Works team as well. And she's someone that you've ridden with a lot. You were teammates with her.
I was, yeah.
She's a little bit cutthroat in the peloton. Like, she's going to go where she wants to go. And
yeah, Barbie, I mean, you definitely want to be her teammate instead of racing against her. She's so good at being a teammate in the lead outs that she's a little bit disrespectful to everyone else. She doesn't care. If you're not wearing an SD Works jersey, then she doesn't care. She'll swipe you or elbow you. But that's the kind of rider you need. I mean, some people were probably quite surprised when she went from Movistar to SD Works, but it's probably the best lead out rider that you can have for Lorena. They're very similar. Just like their styles of racing are quite similar. And then I've done a few races with them, not loads, but you can just see that Lorena really trusts her as well. And that's what you need. as your lead out rider, you need to just know that you can trust them fully to get you to the 200 meters to go.
Yeah, I feel like it's a formidable pair, a terrifying pair, the two of them. And you saw it in the end today because they were pretty poorly positioned going into the final kilometer. And we'll get into that in just a second. But they weren't where you needed to be. It was a lot of Jayco Lula on the front. Your team, Uno X, did super well being up there in where the most hectic parts of the finale were. But there was no SC Works for quite some time. And then it seemed like Barbara just basically came out of nowhere with Lorena Wiebes on her wheel and went straight to the front. And that was that. It was over.
Yeah, I mean, that's how Lorena, when she was on DSM in the previous years, that's how they did a lot of their sprints. They would just wait, hang back, watch all the other teams, use all their riders up, and then they would just hit it. And they always nailed it. So that's pretty impressive. I think, like, just looking a little bit at the course, the roads were big. They were like 4-lane roads for a lot of it, which is quite hard to time those kind of lead outs because they're fast and they're just trains trying to race each other. It's good to just use those teams and then just hit it last minute.
A valiant effort from Voss to take second, and Chloe Duggart took third. Before we talk about the dangerous course, because there was a lot going on today in terms of rider safety, I just want to put you on the spot really quick about what's going through your head when you're in a sprint finish like this, because you won on July 2nd in 2017, a stage of the Giro. You've been an incredible sprinter in your career and taken some pretty good sprint victories. What's it like?
It's scary. I don't believe anyone that says they're not scared when it comes down to a sprint. Even when it's 20k to go to the line, it just gets more stressful and more stressful. And stages like today, I mean, there was a right-hand corner with 800 meters to go that went from 4 lanes to 1 lane. And that's probably more important than the actual finish line.
Some of the biggest talking points of today was not something that we love to talk about, but rider safety. There was a ton of crashes in the opening kilometers in the circuits. When the race started, a lot of riders went down due to unmarked road furniture, and we actually have an audio diary from Veronica Urs talking about that, so let's hear from her really quick.
All right, stage 3 done. Man, all I can say is what a shit show. The first circuit we did, I don't know how many crashes there were, unmarked road furniture. Yeah, hope everybody who went down is okay. Yeah, into more climbing tomorrow.
They also had to amend the finish a little bit, and this was something that happened very last minute in classic Giro fashion. They ended up taking the general classification times with a kilometer to go and letting the sprinters kind of do their thing in the final kilometer, but they didn't change the finish. They kept the finish where it was and just basically took the GC riders out of contention with a K to go. It looked like the most dangerous part was actually 2K to go until about 1K to go, because there was a cobbled section and the road really narrowed quite a lot in the final kilometers as well. So this is something that the Giro has been not great at rider safety in the past, and I guess continues to disappoint when it comes to this.
Yeah, I mean, roads in Italy in general are quite dangerous. There's a lot of bumps and holes and the tarmac isn't great. And you go through a lot of villages and towns. I had it my first year I did the stage 1. They made us do a neutral lap because it was so dangerous and they wanted us to see the lap before we started racing the lap. So like it's weird that like a lot of the time the organizers know that it's dangerous, but they still make us do it. But I mean, it's hard. Like they need money for the race to go ahead, and that they're the towns that have paid for the money, paid for the stages, and put the money forward, and they want that stage to finish where they want to finish in the center of the town. So it's hard. If you want a race to go ahead, you have to take the money from the towns, but it also makes it quite chaotic.
So the GC times were taken with a kilometer to go, and Annemiek van Vleuten remains in the pink jersey, followed by Cecilie Uttrup-Ludwig, 49 seconds behind, and 51 seconds later, it's Juliette Leboeuf. And we're going into stage 4, which looks super fun. Also, classic Giro, there's only 3 categorized climbs, and they're all relatively short, but there's an 8.3 kilometer long non-categorized climb in the middle of the 2 categorized climbs. So the second climb is supposedly 1.3 kilometers long, I think, but it's actually like 9.5. 27K from the finish.
Wow, okay. It's twisty. Wow, I'm just looking at it now, and there's not a straight bit of road in 134K.
I think tomorrow's a great day for a breakaway, but there's also quite a lot of riders that are within a minute of the general classification, and we could see some major changes in the top 10 of the GC tomorrow, I think.
If I was a betting lady, I would say it was a breakaway day, but potentially also a GC day. But I just don't think that the climbs are long, but they're not really steep enough for it to really, really split. And if it does come down to a sprint, it will be like a group of 50 or 60 potentially. I mean, Lorena, she can surprise you, like sometimes she can go over those climbs.
And the 8.3 kilometer long climb, there's a reason it's not categorized. It's not very steep. I think it averages 3%, but there's still a couple climbs in there that are shorter and steeper. So I think it's one of those days where on paper it doesn't look too bad, but it's the Giro, and there could be like 16% sections in those climbs that we just don't see on paper, because that happens quite a lot at the Giro.
Yeah, and they'll Canyon Sham, if they're feeling good in the climb, and Chloe is, then you just want to ride it hard to drop Lorena or just really make her suffer. Jumbo, it's a good one for Voss, good one for Lizzie Deignan as well. So
we'll be back tomorrow to talk about it. Hannah, thanks so much for your time.
All right, Josh, we're losing you to Wimbledon tomorrow, so you're going to be back second rest day, but you have fun with the tennis.
Thank you. I'll see you in the Alps.
See us in the Alps. We're going to play a little soccer game on the rest day. You got to get back in time.
Football.
Yep. Normally I correct myself, but Johnny's around just in case. Johnny, thanks for joining.
Thanks. Bye, Josh. Check up on London for me. Make sure it's all still there.
I'm going to go supervise.
And Ian Triller, thanks for joining the pod.
Thank you.
Chris, you said like a minute of stuff, but thank you as well.
It was the best podcast I've been part of today. I shouldn't say that.
Was that a sneaky plug? We'll leave it in there.
That's a good sneaky plug.
That's a good sneaky plug. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We love having you along here at the Tour de France. We're going to go finish our dinner and be back for stage 3 tomorrow. Bye-bye.